Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone. I'm hoping you've got my title screen up there, Reducing Your IT Energy Spend. As Tim mentioned, I am the Regional Director for APAC for Certero. We're a UK-based organisation. We have an office here in Sydney, Australia, and we provide a PC power management amongst other solutions. But hopefully we'll discuss how we can assist you in reducing your IT energy spend today. So some of what we would like to discuss through our agenda here is Australia's clean energy future, have a look at the Sustainability Index and carbon footprint, some initiatives around green IT, have a look at some facts surrounding Australia's carbon tax, and then have a look at some solutions and how people are approaching green IT and some of the solutions that are available. We'll have a look at a case study where we've been able to assist the City of Sydney Council here in Australia, and I've just got a follow-up slide to give you a little bit more detail about who we are as an organisation as well. So Australia has a clean energy future plan that is driven by the Australian government, and that's really to reduce pollution and drive investment to offset the costs in that reduction of pollution and also the generation of clean energy. Some of those features include a carbon price as well as energy saving certificates that offset some of those costs. So there are initiatives by the government, but we're also seeing that individual organisations, both at a public and private sector level, are also embracing a clean energy future. So there are some quite aggressive targets that have been set, and these targets do change over time by various governments. But what we've found is that over the last decade or so, we've seen steadily increasing energy usage and energy costs. Although in the last year there has been some reduction, at least in Australia, when it comes to energy usage. So people are becoming more conscious of it, and certainly events such as the International Green IT Awareness Week, really does raise the awareness of the benefits of green IT, not only from an environmental standpoint, but also how it can help organisations reduce costs within their organisations. So we have some targets around cutting pollution and cutting CO2 emissions, and just in the last week, the UK government has also recently targeted a 50% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030. So there are some quite aggressive targets that are being proposed. Now in Australia at least, given our population, the pollution per capita in Australia is the highest in the world. Now many people argue that it's actually from mining, but the reality is that mining only accounts for about 7% of our pollution. Most of it is actually from our electricity generation. So if you have a look at how IT has been responding to green initiatives, then you'll find that we're not alone in terms of slowing down our adoption or a reduction in the improvement. So you can see there that we are now below average, and we've had successive declines since 2010. And the question is really, why has that occurred? And I would suspect that through our conversations with customers at least, some of it may have to do with just accountability. So in providing IT solutions that are green or sustainable in nature, oftentimes the IT department doesn't have the issue with regard to energy costs to begin with. So oftentimes that is handled by the facilities department within an organisation, and clearly I think that probably needs to change in order for organisations, or at least IT departments within organisations, to really embrace green IT. Now, there is some positive news. Apologies for that. What we've found is that over the last 12 months or so, that IT departments have become responsible for their IT power bills and consumption. And it probably takes a bit of time, given the fact that they now own those power bills, for them to actually consider saving costs. And that's a big question for them. A lot of them will look at how they can do that across the IT department, and having a look at where those costs come from. We can see that data centers are clearly a big area, but so are PCs and servers. So the IT sector alone in Australia produces roughly 3% of our total carbon emissions, and you can see there are the percentage breakdowns. Now, from a data center perspective, typically you have a lot of servers in there running 24/7. However, Australia has embraced virtualization extremely well, probably more so than any other country on the planet. And so we've seen some very good reductions in energy costs from data centers in that regard. However, on the PC and server side, on the PC side, we really haven't seen that reduction. Now, servers do use a lot more energy than PCs. However, there's roughly about 10 times as many PCs out there. So there's some very good potential. So whilst the IT sector produces 3% of total carbon emissions, they do account for roughly 7% of nearly all electricity generated. So whilst there's been some work done on a server side, clearly on the PC side we are lacking. And it's a general lack in terms of actually managing those assets in a positive fashion, not only from a green IT perspective, but also from a cost perspective. If we have a look at the carbon footprint in Australia by state, then I guess there's probably no surprises here that New South Wales and Victoria are certainly the largest contributors to that. But I think what's also interesting to note is that between 2005 and 2010, electricity prices in New South Wales went up by roughly 61%. Now, across Australia over that same period of time, electricity prices increased on average 2 to 4 times the inflation rate. So we've seen enormous increases in electricity costs, and in just the last 12 months alone in New South Wales there was a 14% increase in energy costs. Now, if we have a look at PCs within the typical environment, they make up around 40% of the assets on your network. So there's a huge potential here to save costs, given that the average PC accounts for probably about 121 kilowatt hours per year. So depending on how many PCs within your environment, there is a huge potential for savings on those energy costs. Now, one way of approaching green IT or just energy reductions in general involve initiatives that are incredibly expensive and also long-term. And payback periods or return on investment on some of these can run into the hundreds of years. The average for a coal power station, for example, is roughly about 16 years. So there it's a very long time between delivering on some of these initiatives and getting a payback or seeing a possible return. So it can take a very, very long time. So there's got to be a better approach to this, and part of that has to be in actually reducing our energy usage immediately. Now, that is all well and good, and saying that, you know, quickly and rolling it off the tongue, but how do you actually invest in something that is systematic, that can be rolled out on a large scale, is reportable, and delivers on those savings and energy reductions and CO2 savings in the very short term? So if we have a look at the targets for carbon reduction across Australia and the energy usage per end user, so there are some targets there to try and reduce that from 400 kilowatt hours per annum to 250 by 2015. So there are some targets. They're quite aggressive, but how do organisations get there? And part of that is going to be, how do they do it on a systematic level, and how do they report what they are doing in terms of their energy reductions, their CO2 offsets, and how do they report on that so that they can get, for example, energy saving certificates, which would provide them the ability to get an offset on the costs spent. The carbon tax, or the carbon price, as it is known, there has been a lot of discussion around this, and the reality is that it may increase the price of energy faster than what we've seen over the last few years. So beyond just the benefits for the environment, beyond the carbon price, we still see energy costs rising, and as I mentioned earlier, the average price increase last year across Australia was around 14%. So there's got to be a quick and easy way to save money. If we have a look at the average week, we can see that there's 168 hours in the average week. 40 hours are spent really on working. Some may say that it's higher than that, but on average there is roughly 128 hours that are available for power saving. If you think of the average PC that gets left on when people go home from work, it's on overnight and it's probably on all weekend, then there is the potential there for up to 75% savings across your energy costs on those PCs. Now the average PC costs about $136 per year to run if it's left on 24/7. Now that's using an average energy cost of 18 cents for business. At home you're probably paying well above that. Now 136 is just the average, so it could be as low as 70 or as high as 200, depending on whether you've got a PC with multiple monitors and the age of the equipment and number of peripherals attached, etc. So if that's just one PC, for 1,000 PCs you're looking at around $136,000 a year just in energy costs for that PC estate. And with 5,000 PCs you're well above over $500,000 just in energy costs. Now over 5 years there is the potential there that will cost $3.4 million. If we just saved 50% of that through a PC power management solution, then it would certainly pay for itself very quickly and you'd be saving an enormous amount of money over that time. Now having all those PCs running or 5,000 PCs running is equivalent to about 662 tonnes of CO2 per year, or about 343 transatlantic flights. There's a number of holidays there, and that's just in 1 year. So if we were to look at other means of offsetting that carbon, it would take about 83,000 trees, or a pretty good forest. So let's have a look at what some people are doing today. Now, with regard to PC power management, if we start on the left there, some people have implemented a corporate policy asking people to switch off their PCs when they go home. Now, some employees will, some won't, but there's no real way of knowing what the employees are doing, and there is no real way of measuring whether that approach is actually working or not. Another approach is to configure some of the built-in PC power options, but that's really relying on some of your end users to have the skills and knowledge to apply those power options, or relying on your IT resources to facilitate that process. Again, very difficult to do. Trying to educate or use IT resources would be quite prohibitive in cost and time. And again, we come back to the problem of how do you know that it's working and how do you measure it. Again, with those built-in PC power options, there are application issues. A one-size-fits-all policy can interfere with users, so you might have different types of users with different requirements with regard to when their PCs may get put into standby or hibernate to reduce costs, and that can lead to loss of productivity, but it can also lead to loss of files with some issues in regard to the built-in PC power options. And lastly, the lack of reporting. How to know whether those efforts are actually making a difference, and how do you know if those current processes are working. What we need is a more robust enterprise class solution. So you need a solution that fits the business and adapts to the needs and behaviours of your end users. So it's not a one-size-fits-all policy, but something that can be created for various users and their behaviours. You need a solution that provides accurate and informative reporting, so defining a baseline, so looking at the current energy costs across the organisation, and then being able to report on the changes and the processes that you've put in place and how they compare to what you were doing before. You also need those reports to be dynamic with visibility of all your business departments, so that you can look and see whether one particular department is better than another, or they have higher energy uses or not, and then being able to report not only just on the energy but also on the cost, carbon and time features. You need something that can be easily implemented and managed so that it's not a burden on your IT department, and something that is certainly non-disruptive to your end user productivity, so something that doesn't impact on their workday. And something that meets the needs of the entire organisation, the PC users as well as the IT. So something that is simple to implement, simple to manage, and meets the requirements of IT sustainability. So Certero provide a solution that is easy for IT to manage. It provides zero disruption to your end users, so it can be almost invisible to the end user. Or we have the options where you can encourage user adoption, so that if you do have sustainability initiatives within the organisation, then our solution can be a part of that initiative, and there are means within our solution to help encourage users to reduce their energy consumption, and we provide a dynamic reporting capability within our solution that allows you to generate reports, charts, and certainly all the reporting needs that you may have for management or for external reporting from the organization. So our solution is called Power Studio. You'll see there that we've provided some widgets and a dashboard on an iPad on I think it's an iPhone 3G that's going back a bit of time. But our tool is web-based, very simple to manage. It's management friendly with the reports and the charting and capabilities within the product, and very simple for IT to install, deploy, and manage on an ongoing basis. One of the key benefits, of course, is that from the moment that the first policy is applied, there will be savings generated on your energy costs. You can define baselines, which is to say how much energy is my environment using today prior to any policies being applied across not only your PCs but also your laptops. And then using that baseline, you can effectively determine exactly how much power you have saved over time. You can create any number of power schemes and policies for different job roles. So depending on whether you have people working on a 9-to-5 basis, or you have people in a call center, for example, who may be working around the clock on different shifts, then you can create different policies for those different users. And you can have personalized dynamic reports on cost, carbon, energy and time per user or per department or across the organization, so that you can see at a very granular level or at a high level exactly the benefits that are being derived from the solution. Again, there are PC power options within Windows. So what's the benefit of using Power Studio? Well, we can derive 40% more power savings than built-in features. So it helps to reduce your organization's carbon footprint significantly. We do save certainly hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands on electricity bills, and the return on investment is very rapid, typically within 4 to 6 months. But not only that, we're providing all of the reporting capability that lets you see exactly the energy and the cost savings that are being derived across the organization. Certero have rolled out Power Studio on a global basis. We have customers across Asia. We have customers through Europe and around the world, all using Power Studio to help derive thousands of dollars of energy savings and tons of CO2 savings. In fact, that's probably closer to the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars being saved through Power Studio on a global basis each year. An example of a customer that we have on a local basis, the City of Sydney recently undertook a large project to reduce their energy costs and water savings as well. They have a large network spread across multiple locations. We are talking in the realm of thousands of PCs. They had a large variety of users with different working patterns. They had users that were remote as well. And they had some very clear and aggressive targets in terms of reducing costs and reducing their carbon footprint. Power Studio has been rolled out at the City of Sydney Council to assist in that challenge. So when the Power Studio solution was deployed, we defined an accurate baseline of their current PC power usage. We applied power schemes and policies for their various users and different departments. And they were very clear about the need to communicate to users to assist in maximising the productivity and the savings that were to be generated. So they've been very vocal in communicating their energy and green IT initiatives. And they've been able to predict and report on their energy savings, their cost savings, as well as the CO2 equivalent reductions. And they have a very flexible set of power policies depending on the organisation's behaviour. So there have been some very significant results at the City of Sydney Council with regard to the use of Power Studio. A little bit about who we are. So we are the #1 PC power management provider to the National Health Service. In the UK, they have over 1 million PCs within their environment, and we have roughly 25% of that covered with Power Studio. We are a software asset management provider and software license optimization provider. We are very proud of our customer support and customer satisfaction levels. And we are a global organisation, so we can certainly support any size customer. We do provide, through Power Studio, the ability to handle multiple tariffs across the organisation. We do work in global organisations with multiple sites on a global basis. So we do have the preeminent PC power management solution on the marketplace today, and I hope that you've seen just a little bit about what we can do and how we can assist you in your green IT initiatives. Thank you very much. I'm going to open the I guess the session for questions. We finished a bit earlier than scheduled, but I hope that it's been worthwhile. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ivan, for that very wonderful and thought-provoking presentation. Some very excellent information there. Certainly, as Ivan said, we'll now kick off the Q&A portion of our live speaker session today. If you do have any questions that you would like to ask Ivan about his presentation, his work with Certero, or his experiences in green IT or sustainable IT, then please submit your questions now in the questions box in the webinar control panel. Okay, so we'll kick off with the first question for you, Ivan. The first question is, how would you describe the current awareness of PCPM technology within businesses in Australia?
Thanks for that. Great question. I think that we've certainly seen some improvements over the last 12 to 18 months, and I really think that part of it is just not the fact that it's green IT, but this also makes sense from a business standpoint alone. So there are the opportunities to save costs, and I think that that has certainly been becoming more to the forefront of people's thinking. So the other part of that is obviously the accountability for those costs and cost reduction initiatives. So that has changed over the last 12 months as the IT departments become more and more responsible for their own costs as opposed to leaving it up to the organisation level. So we've seen that a number of IT departments are starting to consciously think about how do they reduce their costs, but also from a green IT perspective, I think there's also been a lot more initiatives around sustainability across the organisation, and so we've seen that certainly increasing. And I think that you know, the more and more that we see of that, the more we're seeing interest in PC power management solutions, as well as questions in regard to how else they can save energy across the IT estate.
Great, thanks so much. The next question for you, please, is which PC power management initiatives are the best to implement first to increase future buy-in?
I think that in terms of PC power management initiatives, the best approach is certainly a solution that can be implemented rapidly, that can be reported on rapidly. So in terms of our tool, for example, Power Studio, we can implement that within a day and deploy very rapidly, and you'll start to see those benefits and be able to report on those benefits almost immediately. So I think in terms of gaining future buy-in, it's the ability to actually derive savings from the moment you implement a solution, and that you're not waiting around for months or years before you actually realize those benefits. So with something like Power Studio and the reporting capability within the tool, we start to see those benefits almost immediately.
Thanks, Ivan. The next question has, what technologies do you see as most effective for contributing to Australia's clean energy future?
I think in terms of technologies for our clean energy future, then really if you look at, I guess, the full scale, there's the generation of electricity and then there's the consumption of electricity. From a generation standpoint, then it can be a very long time before we start to see real benefits. There are more and more issues around environmental concerns. So for example, even with wind generation, we're starting to see a lot more or perhaps more rigorous standards being applied for the environmental impact of wind turbines, for example, in terms of clean energy. So those things can all take time to deliver, whereas in terms of being effective now and for the future, the ability to reduce your IT energy costs today will be there for forever, really, in perpetuity. So if you're saving $1 now or saving energy now, you'll still be saving that energy in 6 or 12 months' time or 5 years' time. So being able to reduce your IT energy costs today is probably the most effective way to go. And really PCs making up 40% of your IT estate, then that can certainly be a very large area of cost and a very effective means of, I guess, contributing to that clean energy future today.
Thanks very much, Ivan. The next question we have is, how can technology enable organisations to get more for less?
Well, I guess technology is really there to assist the organisation through their business processes. And from a green IT perspective, if we look at something like a PC power management solution such as Power Studio, the real benefit is reducing those costs that the organisation is spending. And these aren't just internal costs for cross-charging through departments. These are external costs that the organisation is paying out. So the ability to actually save on your IT energy spend can have significant benefits across the entire organisation, not just IT. So certainly I would think in that case a PC power management solution as part of technology certainly enables an organisation to get more for less.
Thanks, Simon. How can organisations make their IT infrastructure more sustainable?
I think in terms of sustainability, Australia, in some respect, Australian organisations have led the way on a global basis in terms of adopting, let's say, virtualisation from a service standpoint, where there's really not a lot that can be done in terms of actual energy saving. Most servers and data centres do need to be active on a 24/7 basis. So it's very difficult to put servers in standby or hibernate them when they're needed sort of every minute of every day. Although virtualization does allow for the better utilization of the hardware and therefore better utilization of the energy that's being used. Where we really need to step up, I think, is in terms of the other parts of the business, such as all of those PCs out there, and managing those assets from a power standpoint. And there's huge potential there. So I think there's a lot of benefit to be derived from IT departments and organisations still.
Great, thanks, Simon. We've actually got a question from an audience member now. Excuse me, they comment that it all sounds quite easy, but are there any traps or issues that users need to be aware of?
I think there is, if you're not using a robust enterprise level solution. So if you're just relying on the options within Windows, then you can certainly end up with issues in terms of impact to the productivity levels, impact to actually saving documents, so you could lose documentation, etc. And you don't have any ability to really measure any of those savings. Whereas with an enterprise class tool, then you can actually measure those savings. You can make sure that there's no impact to your end users' productivity. You can be sure that you are going to save documents and that there will be effectively zero impact. In terms, there aren't really that many sort of traps or issues to be aware of. You know, the savings that we look to derive, upwards of 50–60% of your energy costs across your PC fleet, we can save. If you've got users with or an environment where you've got a lot of laptops and they're being used at home or off premises, then certainly those savings won't necessarily be applicable to the organisation, but they may be applicable to the actual end user if they're using it at home. So there's still benefits all the way around, although some may not be, I would say it's very small amount, wouldn't be applicable directly to the organisation. But in terms of traps or issues, there aren't too many. This is as a number of our customers have told us, this is a bit of a no-brainer for them.
Fantastic, thanks for that. The next question we have is, how can PC power management improve sustainability for remote workers?
Well, I think hopefully I've in that last response I did mention remote workers. So I think that from a sustainability standpoint, even if you have a remote worker who is so not on premises, but you have a solution such as Power Studio installed on that laptop or on that PC in a remote location, you will still get the benefits from that. You can still report on those benefits as well. However, the energy costs may be applicable to that remote site and not to a central location, or it may be for that user's home environment, for example. So there are still all the benefits. Remote workers are certainly not left out of the equation at all. It's just where those benefits may be applied to.
Thanks, Ivan. The next question we have is, what advice would you give to an organisation who's considering PC power management technologies?
I think that in terms of advice, I would have a look at the technologies that are out there. I would certainly expect organisations to do their due diligence. I would look for a solution that has been widely adopted and used, that is easy to implement, easy to manage, quick to deploy, a solution that allows you to report on various perspectives, whether that's energy, CO2 or cost, something that allows you to establish that baseline so you can see exactly where you're saving it, and some of those options around whether you want to encourage your end users to embrace green IT or sustainability initiatives, and a tool that can encourage them to do so. And certainly for them to have a look at Certero's Power Studio. We think we've got a extremely good tool from a green IT perspective. We believe the savings that we derive are very robust, and the ability to actually report on those savings is critical if you're looking at trying to get energy saving certificates or carbon offsets.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ivan. Next question is, how can end users be better educated on the benefits of PC power management?
Well, I think if you're relying on some of those corporate policies in terms of educating end users, then what you'll find is that some users will, some users won't, but overriding that, you really have no idea or no real ability to track whether those users are doing that. So if you have a PC power management solution like Power Studio, we can enable it to educate the end users. They can see how they compare to other departments or other users within their department. We use star ratings within the product as well. So there are means and ways within Power Studio, for example, that end users can be educated on the benefits and actually have a look at their contribution to the organisation in terms of energy saving or cost saving. So there are ways, and Power Studio certainly enables a lot of those features for educating end users on the best way to approach green IT. No, thank you very much for everyone's time. Thank you for the questions, and I hope that I've certainly shown you some of the benefits of a enterprise level PC power management solution and how it's applicable to green IT. Thank you.